Hello, and welcome to the Healthy Life, Happy Life podcast. And today's podcast is going to be on foodborne illness, and in particular, on E. coli, and what we as individuals can do every single day to ensure our own food safety and help prevent us from falling ill to foodborne illnesses. Before we jump into exactly what we can do every single day to prevent foodborne illnesses, the first thing we have to do is actually talk about what are foodborne illnesses. According to the Minnesota Department of Health's official statement on symptoms and causes of foodborne illnesses, foodborne illnesses are caused when an individual consumes contaminated foods or beverages. These foods can become contaminated through a variety of ways, such as by being in contact with bacteria that exist in or on animals, or from food that was not properly cleaned from chemicals, and through a variety of other methods. One of the most common and well-known foodborne illnesses is Escherichia coli, or as it's more commonly known as E. coli. E. coli, in accordance with the Mayo Clinic's official statement on E. coli causes and symptoms, occurs just like all other foodborne illnesses, as it enters an individual's body through an infected food or beverage. Upon entrance into an individual's body, E. coli produces toxins which destroy an individual's small intestinal lining. This destruction of the small intestinal lining subsequently leads to pain, nausea, diarrhea, fatigue, fever, dehydration, and in some severe cases, may even lead to death. Even though E. coli may lead to potential death, this however is a very rare occurrence, as is demonstrated in the journal article titled Epidemiology of Escherichia coli Outbreaks by Rangel and colleagues, in which it approximates that each year around 73,000 cases of E. coli are reported, out of which only 1,400 lead to hospitalization, and out of which only 100 cases are severe. Even though E. coli may not have a high mortality rate, it can have a significant impact on an individual's and their families' lives. This can be seen in the journal article Microbes and Infection by Professor Rousseau, in which it states that each year E. coli is responsible for approximately 150,000 lost work shifts, $5 million in lost salary, and $30 million in out-of-pocket costs for medical care each year. However, E. coli does not only play a big role on the individual scale, but also plays a significant role on the national scale, as can be seen in the article by Roos in the Minnesota's Center for Infectious Disease and Policy, in which it found that in 2010, E. coli's direct cost was around $480 million, and its total cost, which includes the cost of pain, suffering, and all the direct costs, to be around $1 billion. This demonstrates that even though E. coli may have a small mortality rate, its impact can still be significant and should not be ignored. In addition to this, E. coli can affect individuals of all walks of life and of all backgrounds, as was once again found in the study by Rangel and colleagues titled Epidemiology of Escherichia coli Outbreaks. The most important aspect of all these findings is the idea that E. coli is a significant player in every individual's lives. However, even though it may be a significant player, it is a risk that can be almost completely eliminated through proper food safety techniques. Before we can get into talking about the main goal of this whole podcast and what are proper food safety techniques to minimize the risk of foodborne illnesses, we have to talk about the current nature and the environment that exists in the American food safety climate. And what is the American food safety climate today? Well, to put it in the simplest terms, currently the food safety climate in the United States is very poor, as individuals are not taking the proper steps to ensure their food safety. This fact can be seen in the observational study by Gehring and colleagues that was published in the USDA, found that 97% of all attempts at washing hands were deemed inadequate, and 40% of individuals didn't even bother washing their hands at all. In addition to this, when actually looking at the food preparation, 48% of individuals ended up cross-contaminating their spices, and 45% of individuals did not even cook their meat to a minimum safe internal temperature. Upon an initial glance, all of these activities may seem minuscule and insignificant on our daily lives, as the majority of times, even if we don't properly wash our lettuce, for example, nothing bad will happen to us. However, by engaging in these types of activities, the risk of foodborne illnesses is exponentially larger than if we took basic and simple proper techniques. With this said, I can almost guarantee that anybody listening does not want to fall ill to foodborne illness doesn't want to have to face all the cost of medical care that may come with it, and doesn't want to have lost productivity and lost work shifts, all due to foodborne illnesses which can be almost practically avoided through simple and basic techniques, which we'll be jumping into right now. Overall, the goal of these food safety techniques, and in a larger part this whole podcast, is to help and promote ways that every single one of us can minimize the risks of foodborne illnesses through simple and important techniques that we are able to implement today and can subsequently ensure a brighter future for us as individuals, for our families, and for our country as a whole, as hopefully the implementation of these food safety techniques will reduce the amount of cases of foodborne illness each year and help us all live healthier and more productive lives. So what are these safe food techniques? Well, these safe food techniques are based upon the Be Food Safe campaign, which was developed by the USDA in cooperation with the Partnership for Food Safety and Education, the FDA, and the CDC. In addition to utilizing this major source as one of the bases for what food safety techniques we should utilize, I've also incorporated information from the USDA's Cleanliness Helps Prevent Foodborne Illnesses article, and the USDA's Be Food Safe and About Be Food Safe articles, all of which provide a good basis for what we as individuals can do every single day to ensure our food safety. So finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, what are these magical techniques that can keep us all safe from foodborne illnesses? For simplicity's sake, these food safety techniques can be divided into 4 simple steps. 1. Clean. 2. Separate. 3. Cook. And 4. Chill. And now we'll be going in depth into each of these steps to highlight what they all entail. The first step is to clean. One of the most important aspects of making sure to clean is to wash your hands with warm soap water for at least 30 seconds before and after handling your food. In addition to this, also make sure to wash all your food properly before handling it. The second part of cleaning is to make sure that you run your cutting boards and utensils through the dishwasher, or at least through hot soapy water after every single use. The final aspect of clean is to make sure to clean your countertops with hot soapy water after preparing food, and clean your refrigerator and microwave regularly. Typically it is recommended by the USDA to clean it at least once a month properly, and once a week more informally. Moving on to the second step for ensuring your food safety: separate. The first part of separating is to make sure that you use one knife and one cutting board for meat and seafood, and then use another knife and another cutting board for salads and foods that are already ready to eat. The next part of separate is to make sure that you keep various food items, for example like meats, seafood, etc., separated, both in your grocery cart and in your refrigerator. The final aspect of separating is to make sure that you store your foods in containers that are fully sealed, or plates that are fully covered in plastic wrap, to ensure that the foods and the juices of the foods do not interact and lead to potential contamination. Continuing on to the third step, to ensure your food safety: cook. The first aspect of making sure that you cook is to remember to always use a food thermometer when cooking, so that you can accurately tell the temperature of your food. Continuing on, the second aspect of cooking is to make sure that you stir and rotate the food when cooking, to ensure that all the areas of the food have received adequate heat to subsequently kill all the bacteria. The third aspect of cooking is to cover your food when microwaving it, to ensure that the food is heated safely and evenly. The final aspect of cooking is to make sure that you bring the internal temperature of all food to the recommended safe minimum internal temperature. In particular, for foods like steaks and roasts, the minimum internal temperature is 145 degrees Fahrenheit. The minimum internal temperature, however, for chicken is 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and for foods such as egg dishes, it's 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Even though these temperatures are a good rule of thumb, make sure to look up for every specific food that you cook, as the minimum internal temperature can vary slightly. Continuing on with this aspect of what should be the temperature of foods, when making foods such as sauces, soups, and gravies, make sure to have the food come to at least a rolling boil when you're reheating it, to ensure that the bacteria has been sufficiently killed and that there is a minimal chance of any contamination that can be harmful. And moving on to the fourth step to ensure your food safety, and that is to chill. The first aspect of chilling is to make sure that you cool the fridge to below 40 degrees Fahrenheit and constantly use a fridge thermometer, which you can place permanently in the refrigerator to check that the temperature of the fridge is accurate. Another aspect of chilling is to make sure that you put all your leftovers into the fridge within 2 hours of having completed consumption of the food, and to make sure that you divide your food into separate containers for optimal chilling. Continuing on, another important aspect of chilling is to make sure that when you thaw your food, in particular your meat, seafood, etc., that you thaw it inside the fridge and not on the counters to minimize the risk of any cross-contamination. The final aspect of chilling is to make sure that you leave enough space in your fridge so that your fridge is not overstuffed, which will subsequently minimize the risk of any cross-contamination. Overall, these are 4 simple steps which every single individual can begin implementing today to help ensure a greater food safety for themselves and for their family, which can lead to achieving the goal of this podcast in minimizing the amount of foodborne illnesses each year in the United States. In addition to being beneficial to the country as a whole, these simple steps can be extremely beneficial for every single individual, as simply no one wants to end up having to waste time, money, and not to mention the pain and suffering of getting ill to a foodborne illness, especially something that can be so easily prevented. Finally, to help promote this food safety behaviors to all individuals, here at the Healthy Life, Happy Life podcast, we have created a poster which highlights all the important steps that every single individual should be taking to help ensure their own food safety. And this poster can be easily downloaded below and printed out and then placed, for example, on one's fridge or in the kitchen to help constantly remind us what proper food safety steps we should be taking on a daily basis to ensure the food safety of ourselves, our families, and for our country as a whole. With this said, we have come to the conclusion of the Healthy Life, Happy Life podcast. I hope that as a result of this podcast, from now on till forever, all of you will engage in safe food techniques to help ensure the safety and happiness of you, your families, and everyone around you. And with that, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a healthy and happy day.